Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Spare Bedroom Studios and Solo Spotlight with Ryan MacDougall. On this next episode, I sit down with Edmonton-based wrestler and BJJ practitioner Jack O'Connor, a guy who's bringing British heat and technical grit back to the Canadian wrestling scene. We talk about everything from his transition from MMA to wrestling, what it takes to be the villain in the ring, and the mindset behind both a performer and an athlete. Jack opens up about challenges from starting late, staying grounded, and finding ways to balance creativity, performance, and real life. Whether you're into wrestling or not, this episode dives into themes we can all relate to: risk, reinvention, and knowing who you are when the lights go out. With that, let's dive into it. Episode 30, Jack O'Connor. Welcome, man. I can already tell this is going to be a good conversation.
I'm happy
Jack,
to be here, man.
Yeah. Yeah. How you feeling? How you feeling today? Was there anything you had to do to kind of prepare for this?
Well, this is like my first long form like podcast or interview.
Right.
So kind of thinking about how I want to be.
Right.
So forgive me if I'm a bit nervous seeming, I think we'll be real good when we get the questions rolling, to be honest with you.
And for some people I bring on and I kind of tell them like, hey, this is going to be like, it's going to challenge you, right?
Well, when I was driving over, I had a bit of a laugh to myself because I was going, you can run out there if the promoter says, go out there and cut a 2-minute promo before you, for a match. And, what do you want to talk about? It's like, talk about your opponent. Okay. And then you got to go out there and riff off 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so you're nervous for a podcast, but you can go out in front of 100 people, talk absolute nonsense, and you'll be okay with it. So you can do this.
But I find too, like for something like this, you don't have anything to like lean on, right? Ralph, man, get over here. This dog.
Ralph likes me. He likes me a lot.
Sometimes he can be super good and relaxed, and other times he's absolutely obnoxious. We're hoping he cools off. But yeah, it's interesting because I think with that you have like the motivation of the audience, or like there's something you can kind of. For some people, I feel like whether it's through like cosmetics or appearance, they can kind of like fake their way through it and go like, this isn't really me. So it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, when you're wrestling, right, the whole point is you're kind of supposed to be in character, right? So when I go out there, I'm Jack O'Connor, I am this trash-talking English grappler. So, like, for me, I am talking trash while I've got my opponent in a wrist lock, cranking on his face, working his legs, kicking him, punching him, because I've got the kickboxing background. And for me, it's like the audience is booing me because, I'm coming out and I'm giving them this. I'm giving them, like, telling them to shove it up their asses.
Yeah.
And, I go out and I'll be I'm an international star, just because I'm foreign.
Right.
Right. And I'll be like, oh, how have I lowered myself to be in front of you people?
Right, exactly. Like royalty.
Right. And I'm not royalty at all. I'm a
dude.
Half peasant, really.
Yeah.
But it's being able to use things like, being English as a weapon against the crowd to kind of get a response out of them. Right, because in wrestling, I am what they call a heel.
Because I was going to say, are you a baby face or are you a heel?
I'm a heel. I think it's just some people I've gone, I think I could be a, rah-rah, real good guy. And then people go, look at you, man. No, like, you look like a bad guy in a film sometimes. Like,
it's interesting you say that. And I say it's interesting because we just had this recent election. And I was like, there was some people that I looked at where I was like, I'm sure you're a fucking genius, but there's no way I'm letting you be the leader. You know what I mean? Like, some of these guys looked like his name was Regland, and he looked like he was part of, like, the Goller family. And you're like, dude, I'm sorry, man. Like, God just didn't help you with this, and like you got to do a lot more PR stunts to kind of. So do you think like the idea of being a babyface is kind of transparent in like it actually is being a babyface, and it is?
Yeah, I think there is an element of wrestling where like how you look and how your physical presentation kind of dictates how the crowd will kind of respond to you, especially at first glance, right? On the independent level, you don't really have the ability to have like high level production presenting who you are, and
they can't set the tone for
you don't have writers
Right.
giving you promos and all that stuff, so you kind of have to tell the crowd who you are with the first 5 to 10 seconds you've come through the curtain. And there are some guys where they want to be the guy that gets the kids cheering and buys their stuff and all that, but then they kind of have like a sour face to them. They look miserable when they're out there. They don't emote actual like cheer for me energy, right? They kind of generate the opposite, right? Where it's like, oh, it seems a bit forced. Like I kind of just want to boo this guy because I'm not really believing in him.
Yeah,
and it could be deflating as a wrestler when you go out there and you get zero response. Because I've had that where you go out and you're trying to establish, I'm the villain in the match, and you just get silence, and you're like,
now what's the expectation from the promoter to like, what are, like I call them like what I do? I call them like deliverables of like, what are things that I have to do in this like established agreement? So it's like, okay, I'm going to wrestle. Do you need what I'm going to do, what the outcome's going to be, what my character is, a bio? Like, what is the expectation on them? Or they're like, see ya at curtain.
My experience with wrestling has always been like the promoter will just tell you like who you're working with and this is what I want, right? And as a wrestler, it is up to you to then build and deliver that story. And the big factor is how much time you're given, right? Like, the presentation will always be, this match has it's for one fall with a 20-minute time limit, right? And it's like, does that match ever actually go 20 minutes?
No.
Right? Because you'd think in 20 minutes, there could be a decisive winner.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're watching a UFC or a boxing match, right, and you go, oh, the fight's 6 rounds.
Yeah.
Someone can get knocked out in round 3. Right. Like, doesn't have to go 20 minutes.
And it just depends on what kind of story you're trying to tell.
Yeah, and when you're doing like the small towns, like in my experiences of going around like Saskatchewan, like Alberta, like a little bit into BC a couple times, you don't have the ability to kind of tell an elaborate story a lot of the time because
you're going to the next city the next day.
Next town might not be the same people at the next show. Like it's because wrestling is such a transitory business. Like, I've done it where guys are like, oh, we could do a team. And then it's like that guy, you don't see him in the same province for weeks, right? So it's kind of like, well, you can't
do anything.
So you kind of have to be able to literally work with what you got, work with the crowd you got, because you don't have the set expectations that they're going to remember who you are every time.
I think, but it also goes both ways because it probably is a lot more relieving in that sense, as maybe even just like that type of mindset, because it's like, fuck these people. Like, fuck these people, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they're talking shit, fuck them, man. Like, it's great. And like, but as the character, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like this weird, like, like through it, it's like, fuck them. But you're also like, well, they're the ones paying for the tickets. So it's ultimately not fuck them.
Oh, yeah. For character wise, like, I definitely have the attitude of like, screw these people. Like, I get to do what I want to them. I get to talk trash. I get to do this. But because they have paid for a ticket, they're allowed to heckle me. They're allowed to talk trash. And it is a show. And at the end of the day, it's a show, right? Like, it's pretty crap when you go to a comedy show and they throw out every heckler, right? With wrestling, though, I can be threatening. So if you're going like, "Hey, you goof sitting in the crowd." If I'm beating the crap out of my opponent, I have no problem
talking shit.
He's crawling, he's hurt. I'm gonna take a minute to look at this fucking idiot in the crowd.
Yeah.
And, you try to be a little more creative when insulting the crowd because I find it's really low brow entertainment to like knock their weight,
Yeah, it's just
it's
corny.
It's corny. It's kind of like, they want to.
You just have people go like, ugh.
You want banter. It's kind of, if I'm kind of breaking the fourth wall more. You want more
already.
Wit.
Yeah, it's you want more.
You want to be witty. Yeah. You want it to be like, you want people to laugh a bit, like, or go ooh, like that type of stuff. Like my favorite is where you get like a group of kids, right? They're like, and when I say kids, they're like 18 to 22, right? And they're drinking, and they got 10 of them are together, and they're having a good time, and they're talking shit. And my favourite thing to do is when you get one of them to go back and forth with them, I'll just be like, I'll be waiting for you outside. Yeah. Right? And it's funny where after the match, you've had time to calm down, you've gone and done your ring crew stuff, and you've been paying your leaving, and then there's these fucking guys sitting out there waiting for you, and you're like,
we're serious.
Oh, crap, we're being serious now. Okay, shit. Yeah. Oh, damn. And then, they're like, now what? And I'm like, well, did you enjoy the show? It looks like you did. Like,
you relax.
Like, relax, man. It's not that deep.
Do you find it's a lot of people that you kind of like? You have to give them like, no. How do I put this? Like, for some people, do you think like the fandom gets too intense where you're like, just remember though, Scooby-Doo isn't real.
You
know what I mean? Like, it's great and it's fun. But like, please don't jump over this fence, get yourself hurt, tackled by security.
It's rare. There's been like most incidents that I've experienced myself. It's usually been someone they've been drinking and they think it would be funny to run into the ring or something crazy like that. But because it's unsafe, because we don't. Who's this guy showing up and in the middle of while we're running around, throwing each other about, kicking each other, like,
and it's like it's trained.
I've been seriously hurt doing next to nothing in wrestling at times. Like, I've really hurt myself just falling over, like on a move I've done dozens of times, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's then you add some rando into the mix and it becomes incredibly dangerous. Like, yeah, we're performers, we're doing something very physical, we're going to talk trash to the crowd, or the good guys might like hug the crowd and fucking high fives and all that, but it's like, I'm still a person, you can't touch me if I don't want to be touched, I don't have the right to be assaulted, right? And vice versa, I'm never going to strike a fan.
Right.
Like, cool, they can flip me off and call me bald, like, I get bald comments all the time, like, shave your head, give it up, but you sign up to be in front of an audience, so you can't.
I was gonna pull this one up here. So it looks like tag team's your thing, is that right?
So as a rookie, I kind of worked a lot of multi-man and tag matches, and it's kind of.
Let me make sure this
it's too loud. Pretty common for a lot of wrestlers to be involved in that sort of thing when you're kind of finding your feet. So I remember this was Wild Rose because I remember Farmer Jake here.
Yeah, they love this dude. They were like, Farmer Jake.
Farmer Jake gets great responses when he comes out to towns. I think because it's a gimmick you can get behind, right?
Because it's the farmer gimmick.
It's the farmer gimmick, right? Like, if you're from
is this what you're walking out to right now? No.
Yeah, I'm walking out there now. So this match is a handicap match. Actually, it's
like a 2-on.
It's a 2-on-1. So it's me and I think Chucky Lee Ray
against
Farmer Jake.
Oh.
And funny that this match kind of got thrown together because it was supposed to be a guy called Rick Jules wrestling Farmer Jake, and they were going to have like a little bit of a mini feud blow off type match.
Right.
But I think scheduling conflicts came up, so they kind of
They were like, "How are we going to do this
tweaked
story?"
me into it, where they were like, "Right, we're going to get Jack and Chucky to come after Jake as a as hired hit as a goon squad."
Right.
Right. So that's sort of what we're trying to present.
But you talk about like going from like province to province. Now, how much does that storyline like follow?
So,
like, do certain promotions like in talks with each other of like, hey, it's gonna help you if you like establish him, or is it like, no, that's like we have like that likeness?
It varies from promotion to promotion. Like for me, I'm sort of still finding my feet, so I've only really worked in a handful of places like one time, right, as like a promoters doing favors for each other, or you get asked like, hey, we're doing this thing out in BC, would you like to hop in the car with us for the weekend?
Right.
And so for me, I'm not at the level where I'm kind of privy to who's going to be made the big deal of what, and I'm kind of at the point where
they just give you
when I show up to a booking, I just ask the promoter what they want, what they expect of me personally, and what they expect from the match. And then I just go and find whoever I'm supposed to work with, and we do the work from there. I've only been wrestling about 3 years myself, so
okay, so
to say I've got like an expert opinion, it's sort of
but I think you know Nathaniel Blaze, right?
I do, yes,
right.
Big strong man,
right?
Works,
and he's getting into real estate. I had him on the podcast,
right?
And it was one of these things where I had to formulate my questions in a way of like, well, he's just getting into it. So how can I angle this of like, well, what can you give me as like your process of going through it? And how did that look for you? And like, what are the struggles you're seeing as a new guy? Right. So although you don't have that experience, it's kind of like, you still have the experience of just doing it, if that makes sense, right?
I get what you mean.
Because I think that's a strong launch pad that people don't kind of give themselves credit for, of like, yo, you might not have a lot in terms of like, once you look at that flow chart, it's like wrestling, and then it's like, and then it's like, ground game, but everything.
Yeah, all the aspects.
And then storylines,
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things that it's daunting, right? Like you're always gonna have to learn, because when you look at how deep it goes, and there's so much history and like things to learn, where it's I think it's one of those things that's more rewarding as you do it, and then you kind of look back and go like, oh, I did that shit, and I did that shit, and that shit was cool. Like,
oh yeah, and I've done some cool stuff in pro wrestling in little less than 3 years. Like it's been pretty good for something that I kind of just picked up for the love of it.
So let's start our storyline here of like kind of what, like, because I want to bring the audience through like kind of how this all started, and like how like your background and you coming from the UK and moving here 14, right?
Yeah.
You were 14. And kind of like how that worked, and was there things that you kind of had to let go from like your roots and then build on to new things? So like explain to me like what it was like kind of growing up in the UK, and kind of how you saw that from like a childhood perspective.
Yeah, I grew up in just outside of London, so I split my time between living with my parents in Essex, which is like a county literally 20-30 miles away from London, and then living with my grandparents in Cheshunt, which is just outside of like London itself. It's in like the area of like Enfield, so North London. Yeah, and I had a pretty normal upbringing for the most part, with having an autistic sibling. I played sports, I went to school, was crazy about football and all.
What was your favorite team?
My favorite team is Tottenham Hotspur.
Tottenham, great team. Harry Kane.
Yeah, well, we miss Harry Kane.
Yeah,
we're crap this year. Good God! Like,
what do you think of teams like Wrexham and stuff when they kind of come up, but they, people they don't establish a fan base from like grassroots. It's kind of like, I like them because I like Ryan Reynolds and he's the owner. And
yeah, I think Wrexham's growth, it's unprecedented in football, really.
It's like industry plug. That's what I see.
But from what I've gathered and like the success of Wrexham Football Club, it's kind of spoken for itself at this point, because when Ryan Reynolds bought the club, like they were on the verge of not existing anymore. Like the bank pretty much owned them at that point. So they were kind of like,
well, now
it's almost the miracle of you've got an owner who is now also taken the time. Because if you watch the show, he goes and does like
some crazy shit,
town halls,
and it
interviews.
Looks like he's signing Jamie Vardy. So
crazy, right?
That's like, crazy.
That's a big one.
Right?
Football, Leicester City legend going to Wrexham, but they've made it to the Championship in less than 5-6 seasons, which it's staggering how many teams have kind of had owners come in and make all these promises and then it doesn't go anywhere. It turns into a financial hole. Versus what Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney have done at Wrexham is they've pumped money into it, but they've also gotten the backing of the community, because they haven't changed like the name of the ground, they haven't changed the team's colours, they haven't altered the name. You don't see it
like plagued with like sponsorships and all this
like they have
bullshit,
sponsorships that make them money.
Yeah,
that's kind of the cool
bit. But it's
like
it's traditional to the rest of the league. It's not like it's a huge like pump and dump scheme.
Yeah, because lots of clubs have had like billionaire owners who've just come in and they try to jack it up and then
sell it at a high point, and then someone just comes in and your expenses are through the roof, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, like what they've done is pretty incredible. Like they've just achieved promotion to Division 2, which is like the championship, and that season will prove whether they're real or not, because the Championship, in my opinion, is the most competitive football league in the world.
Well, yeah,
because at the start of the season, there's about 14 teams that could probably win it, like because it's so competitive to want to go to the Premier League because of the money that's up there. It's in the hundreds of millions, right? It blows the NHL out of the water.
Watch out. That's all right. Don't worry.
Did not pay attention and did not spill it on Ralph. See, I love
That's
dogs.
all right. Don't worry. That's what the carpet's there for. So when you talk about sports and like being because when you look at wrestling now, it's like kind of you're trying to get to like a higher level, if that makes sense, right? Now, traditionally, as like a kid going through sports, was there ever that idea where you're ever like, oh, I want to be like a professional footballer, or did you kind of know that like going and education and stuff like that, or was it early on that you were kind of knew you were more of like a sports oriented?
I was definitely more of a sports kid, like for sure. I mean, I have ADHD. I learned
that's all right.
Later on in life, but yeah, I was never the most academically inclined kid. Like in school, I did okay in some subjects like English, history, anything that required like a lot of reading, I was pretty good at. Like science as well, but math was like, even to this day, math is
I don't do math.
Bastard.
I passed like foundations grade 11, and it was like, I'm good, man.
Yeah, I
can't even fucking divide. I can't even fucking divide. Yeah.
But as a kid, I played all sports. I mean, I did track and field. I did football, soccer for our Canadian friends, rugby. Every crazy British.
Talk about rugby. Like, did you like? Was there a big? Because I only have like a few friends that are like huge into rugby that they actually watch. I either have friends that play and they don't watch it, or you have friends that play and watch it?
Well, over there it is a very big sport. Like
Yeah.
it is, I would say,
Like it's played in pubs and stuff?
between that and cricket, it's no, those two sports besides football are the most popular by far. Like, I mean, they draw big crowds. Like, the money isn't as big,
But
but you know, it's
You have a
it's
fan
also
base.
it's the tough guy game, right? Like,
It's
it's
like
still
it's like
even with all
lacrosse
the
here.
even with all the rule changes, it's still a pretty rough game to watch, and it's exciting. And
Yeah.
you know, like, these guys are like dudes who are like all 6'3", 220. They can all run the 100 meters in like 11 seconds. They're all monsters, right? It's like,
Yeah,
cardio wise, they'd probably give the NFL players and probably hockey players a run for their money in terms
for
of conditioning.
sure. Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where it's too just like that mental exercise of like, yo, this is sacrificial as fuck. Like,
Oh yeah,
like if I don't know anything, I'm just gonna get my soul separated from my body.
I just remember like the generic advice you'd get when playing a sport like rugby, like, oh yeah, just get in hard, kid. Like, it won't hurt if you run as hard as you can. You're like,
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, like getting clipped with elbows and knees and all that stuff. But
Now what do you think would be like the definition of someone like breaking through into like a professional thing? Like, do you think it's like, I'm sure it's skill, but I think a lot of it is like, yo, they got beaten with sticks for hours, and they didn't give up, and they were able to kind of like adapt.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, what is that like key trait of someone that like is the one that kind of like the cream rises? You have all the semi-pro people,
Yeah.
and then you have the one guy that inches his way up.
I think the thing that separates like a semi-pro from like an elite professional in any sport is, I think it has to be it can't just be one thing. I think it has to be a combination of natural talent plus the work ethic, like, and the determination to not quit. Because you hear the stories of, I love the stories of guys who go undrafted, right? But they worked on their game because, you know, they had the talent. It was just they couldn't convince someone at that time that they were worth the money to become a professional.
Right.
But then you also see it all the time where you have a guy who gets all the way to the highest level
Yeah,
on natural
someone's
talent
just-
alone, but he has no discipline, no
And a
ability,
shit attitude.
and a crap attitude, and he's gone just as quickly as he shows up.
Yeah,
Right.
but for something like that, like it was funny. I was just having a conversation with with a friend of mine. I haven't seen him for a while, and he said like one of the biggest things that he had to adjust in his life was like stop like comparing himself to other people, because I told him,
Yes.
comparison is the thief of joy, man. Like you can't worry about that, and especially it's easy to say, yo, that guy has a bad attitude, that guy da 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 da, but a lot of that, unfortunately, is like self-reflection.
Yes.
A lot of that is like, you're just mad because you didn't
make it.
You know what I mean? Like,
And I think when you talk to all the guys who are like those elite of the elite, they mention that they love what they do. Like, for them, if it's like a Kobe Bryant, he loved getting up at 4 a.m. and taking fucking a million free throws before practice or whatever the hell those crazy
it was
numbers
like he was built for
like,
it.
you have to love what you do to want to do it at that level. Like, you see it in professional wrestling. It's one of the hardest sports or pursuits, in my opinion, to go 100% full time. That is what you do for a job, because it's hard. Like,
Yeah.
the travel is brutal. When you're on the new level, the money is not there for your living. So like,
It's like 1% of the people make 99% of the money.
yeah, it's
Right.
I mean, once you obviously hit like the WWE levels, like, you're on salary contracts and you work
Yeah.
set days. But at the independent level, it's you if you work hard enough, you can make a living. It's just you've got to have the drive. And
Well, and it's again like it's something that I brought up off camera, but you talk about I kind of discuss like when you look at your life trajectory and how you kind of went through your like personal experience, how does that affect like the opportunities that you might have as opposed to someone else? It's like,
Yeah.
so like when you talk about like having family and two brothers and stuff like that, like did you ever feel like there was some sort of, now again, you didn't get into wrestling until like 3 years ago, but like being in sports and like having this kind of driven attitude, did you never think you could go full throttle? Like, were you ever worried about like, I'm just gonna do it, but then you're like, well, I can't move away from home, or I can't do this, or I can't.
Yeah, there's been, for me, I think that is one of the things that would hold me back from ever wanting to pursue a full-time career in something like wrestling or, say, going and trying to be a professional grappler. It's just, I feel like I'm in a position where I need to work to fund those things. And it's a big risk. And you're taking on, and it's just a risk at the point where I'm like, I'm comfortable with where my life is. I kind of know where I want to go with my life trajectory, but you need to have a job to even fund those things first, right? And
how do you like roadmap for you? Like when you look at like your overall like, you know what I mean, roadmap. Like I sit down and I do your daily
road to the part, your road to the goal.
So
right?
like. How do you see that? Is that something you have to like write down? Is that something you have to visualize? Like, because for me, I have to like I have to sit down. If I'm thinking about like, well, what do I want this? I have to like draw it out 7 times, and
For me, I'm someone where it's like I get told you should write down your goals and do all that stuff, but I'm the guy, I'd write the goal down and then lose the notepad the freaking thing's written on. So for me, like I've always kind of known what I want from life. I want to just be healthy, be able to do my artistic pursuits like I do, and earn a living, right? And if I can combine two of it, that would be amazing. But I think I'm kind of hampered by a late start, and I honestly, when you look at guys who are doing this full time, they are incredible athletes, like guys who can do things that would make my head spin. And I just think, I would love to try and make a go of it, but I'm still learning, and I feel like, having smaller goals, like right now, I want to be able to kind of like establish myself in Edmonton and Calgary right now. Like being a name in those two cities.
Those are big hubs. Those are big hubs.
And it's fantastic hubs.
Yeah.
And for me, wrestling would be, I love it to be something where I can go, I get to go and travel to Mexico. I get to go and travel to Japan every once in a while. Just, if I have to pay for most of my way there, so be it. Just be nice to have the opportunity to have that feather in your cap as a wrestler that you were able to go overseas. That would be the dream, I think, of everyone.
Yeah.
Really.
It's having something like that. It's one thing where you're able to have that creativity, but I think for what type of industry, like the wrestling industry, you just don't get put in those rooms, because I think it's so much about like thin margins and like putting on an event. It's like maybe when you get into like the bigger, like, the bigger avenues, they have more time to sit down. But in most of these like artistic, performative things, a lot of time it's your creativity that stands out. And it's like, well, you only get that like 20 minutes. So what other avenues do you think you would have as like a wrestler to kind of show your worth?
I think for me, I'm trying to get myself to a point where my skills from the mixed martial arts world and my, the competitive grappling side, I would love to be known as like a very good, just solid technical wrestler who can strike. right? Meaning I can brawl, I can do street fights, I can do submission matches, I can do the round matches like the old British style matches. Hopefully that would be
Yeah.
like matches. Being able to have the opportunities to have matches like that more would be fantastic. But obviously I'm not at the level where I get to be picky. I am thankful that I get to go and do this when I can, right? Because
do you find your reputation as a grappler translates well into what you're doing with wrestling?
It does.
Or do you find the skill set is like more unique?
I think the skill set is unique in that I can turn like legitimate submission holds into something that you can do for show, right? It's something like where I can kind of draw out the conclusion of an armbar. I can kind of make fun of the guy while I'm choking him out, right? It gives me a chance to kind of be a little more creative than someone who, say, doesn't have that background and their knowledge of grappling is what they're shown in a wrestling school or whoever showed them how to wrestle. Right, and I'm thankful because I've had coaches in wrestling who are good at grappling. They are good at teaching, like, you know, the more acrobatic stuff, teaching the psychology of how to kind of take those moments in between, like, offense. It's like when you're brand new, you want to, like, smack people, go hard, do all the stuff you saw on TV, right? Yeah. And then you kind of sit there and go, yeah, it was cool, you did all that stuff, but crowd really didn't get a chance to think about what they just saw.
Well, in the amount of drilling,
you kind of learn, like, it's a common thing you hear in wrestling when you're new is like, slow down, slow down, slow down. If you think you're going slow, go slower, right? Like, and it's because it allows the audience to understand what you're doing, right? Like, and if you're just picking a guy up and slamming him over and over again, and you're not getting the win, it's like, well, fuck, man, you're not very good at this, are you? Like, if you're having to slam him that much and he's still getting back up, and those are things I didn't really think about until you've had the experience and the ability to have guys who are incredibly experienced tell you, you know, from the 15, 20 years they've been doing it, like, you know, hey, like, you think you're doing good, but like you can make things so much better for yourself by maximizing those moments, by just letting it breathe, right? Yeah. And that's where the creativity comes in, is being able to sometimes get the crowd going crazy without doing anything. Like, it's really fun when you can spend 2 minutes of just getting the crowd going boo, yay, and all you guys have done is wave your arms about and yell. Right? Sometimes that's fun. Sometimes crowds want to see action. Right?
Was there any, like, in this last 3 years, was there any, like, very big lesson that you learned? Like, was there kind of one of these times where you were like, oh yeah, I fucked up?
Oh, I had a match. God, I can't remember when the match was. A couple years back now. But I ended up getting, like, really bad news, like, the day of this show, right? And it just put me off for hours. And then I went out and did this match, and I, you know, tried to bluff my way through how I was feeling by telling my coach, like, because I was wrestling my coach that night, and it was like, you know, I want to have an easy night for you, like, you know. And I ended up just, like, shit in the bed, and, like, he had to, like, drag me around the ring and beat the crap out of me just to get, you know, me going. And it was very just crushing to, you know, let someone down, right? Like, you know, and that was the lesson, that when you go out and do this thing, there are people paying money to come see you do this. So you better be mentally, like, there and ready to go. And, you know, you should be able to do the bare minimum fundamentals, even when you're not all, you know, even if you're not feeling like 100% like you want to be there. The discipline of great professional wrestlers is, no matter what's going on, they can go out there and perform in front of a crowd of 10 people or a crowd of 2,000 people, right? You need to give that same effort for the audience, no matter who they are, what town it is, and how many of them there are, right? You need to give that 100% good performance, mentally at least.
So when we look at fundamentals, like, where does that start with someone that's looking to get into wrestling? Like, where was your entry point when you look at getting into like wrestling? Was it tricky finding that avenue, and kind of what were some prerequisites or things like you had to learn right away?
Well, I'll everyone's entry into wrestling is a little different, I've noticed. But I'll give you my perspective on my entry. So I went to a show. I went to Top Talent Wrestling in August of 2022, and midway through the shows, they have a little poster that pops up that says, "You want to be a wrestler? Like, email Top Talent and inquire." Right? And I thought, okay, that'd be kind of cool, like professional wrestling. I hadn't really watched it in a long time. I hadn't really thought about it, but I was like, I've always wanted to do it. I have a bit of money kicking around. Like, it's $1,500 for 3 months of training. So you're like, oh, okay, like I can swing that. Let's gift to myself. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. And I went out and met Harlan Abbott, my coach, who's a bloody phenomenal wrestler. Like, he's one of the guys where I try to preach it all the time, sign this man to a big promotion. He's awesome at like most aspects of professional wrestling, if I'm being honest, but of course it's the man who taught me, so I'm being a bit biased. But he taught me things like, obviously you learn how to fall, how to run the ropes, you learn like the basic entry grappling of wrestling, and I kind of picked them up pretty quick, because obviously learning jiu-jitsu, wrestling, like in the the amateur side of it, you're kind of like, I kind of understand what they were telling me when they try to position you to learn how to fall or learn how to do a slam. Like, I kind of picked those things up a little quick. And if you have an athletic background, you can pick up some very basic things pretty quick. But where wrestling gets tricky is when you start going, all right, now you've got to do all those things and tell a story that's interesting while you do it. That's hard, and that's something that I think I'll be learning forever, right? Like,
did you have a lot of, now looking at your professional background as well as like the wrestling background, do you find it's easier to feel for new people that don't have pre-existing experience? Like, you can say to them like, I totally understand why this is so foreign to you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because the amount of growth that's required.
Like, for the longest time, I kind of consider myself a bit of a semi-introverted person. Like, for almost every hour I like being around people, I kind of need an hour to myself sometimes. So for me to put myself out there as like a performer, and be out there in front of an audience, it's daunting. Like, there are people who are afraid of public speaking, right? And they want to be professional wrestlers. And it's kind of one of those things where you're sympathetic, but you also got to understand, like, well, the reality of what you do is you got to go out in front of a crowd. It's a bit like with, the job that we do, the law enforcement roles.
Right.
Like, it's like, yeah, you're going to be dealing with some really dangerous people and some crazy situations, and if you can't handle even like an argument with someone, you have no business being here. Like, it's dangerous.
Do you find there's
at that level anyway?
Do you find with wrestling there's like a steep learn? Do you find that it's like a revolving door, or do you find a lot of people stick once they get there?
I think it's a very like when I said, it's a very transitory business. There's lots of ins and outs. I've met guys who have gone through the training, had a couple matches, and then you never see them again. Like, they might crop up every once in a while on a show, or but yeah, I think a lot of people tend to filter out of it eventually, because it hurts, it's difficult, like, it's not easy to learn.
Is it more
I
of
find,
an ego?
Anyway.
Is it more of an ego thing, or is it more of like a physicality thing?
I think sometimes it's a physicality thing, because I've seen lots of people, like, if they're maybe over 35 even, and I'm not saying like if you're over 35 don't pursue what you want to do, but like, it's such a physically demanding thing to do. Like, I've seen people hurt themselves learning how to just fall on their back, right? And you're like, man, you're injuring yourself just falling on your back. I don't know how you're going to get through a
thrown
match,
off
right?
the ropes.
And it's sad when you see that happen, because you want people to have their moment and follow the dream, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. It's a bit like, same thing in wrestling. You'll see a guy who's doing really well and he gets to TV, and then he does a handful of appearances on TV, and then he's never on TV again. Like, it's sort of just...
Is this something that you would recommend to someone, or are you more like sparsely recommended based on like how you assess this person? Of like, it's like, oh, it would be great for everybody to try, and it's like, he could be maybe she could be all right, but she's not a big talker, so like, and then out of 5 people, you tell one person like, you should check this out, this might work for you.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where if people are interested in it enough, go for it, right? Like, if you feel like you really want to do this, you really want to pursue that dream, or like wrestling, or a sport you've wanted to do, or a new job, like you won't know unless you try. But when it comes to wrestling specifically, I do kind of tell them, like, you're not falling on soft mats and all that, you're falling in a wrestling ring, which is wood and steel, right? Like, it hurts. Like,
so when does the theatric transition to like physical? Like, is there a point in matches where like people start to be like, ooh, okay, like, is that a thing where?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you are doing it perfectly, the audience would think you are absolutely murdering this man.
Right.
He is being beaten to death in front of our eyes because the guy you're beating is doing such a great job making you look strong.
Right.
Right? That's the trade-off in wrestling, and that was the thing that it was actually one of your questions was, what is the challenge of going from what we call in wrestling the shoot background, which is like legitimate combat sport, to pro wrestling. And the biggest transition difficulty I had was selling offense, because when you're doing shoot sports like boxing, kickboxing, MMA,
you have a defense.
You can't show you're hurt, like, at all, like, because it's weakness.
It's a bad strategy.
It's a bad strategy to wear your emotions on your face. And then when you're going into wrestling, you do that, then okay, like, you're hitting me and I'm not registering it. Am I really tough, or are you crap? Right? It's a bit like, there's a degree of like, yeah, you're tough and you can take some hits, but if a man the same size of you is punching you in the head, like, it's not going to feel nice. So
and it's
you should probably behave accordingly.
And the thing is, what people don't understand is like, it's a collaborative thing of like, if we aren't all on the same track, it's not going to look like it should.
Yeah.
Or it's not going to, like, everybody. And it's same with when you look at anything. Like, there's amount of buy-in that people, like, okay, you might think it's corny. You might think it's this. Yeah. You might be worried because your mom's in the crowd. And, she's not a huge fan of wrestling, but she's here for you. So you know what I mean? And you're trying to prove a point, whatever it is. It's like there's some type of thing where it's like, dude, whatever the fuck it is,
yeah,
leave that there. I ain't got time for that bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what you're here for. I understand now. This is the plot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. It's a bit like, I would almost say it's like this. If you went out and you had a play, right, and it kind of played out where everyone just kind of does what they want, how crap would that fucking play be?
Exactly.
Right? Like, it'd be shit. You wouldn't want to watch it at all. With wrestling, you do have an expectation, if you're going to it, of what it's going to be for the most part. Like, it's really, really great when you do a show and you have someone come up to you after and go, that was my first ever show and that was awesome, right? And you're like, awesome, we made a first impression. I hope these people keep coming back, because that's kind of how it stays alive, right?
Is there a lot now? Some of my questions like have to do with like the person that you display in the ring, and like how much do you consider like authenticity as much as you consider like creating a person or a character that's good for the stage? Like you want to show like some little bits, but it's like sometimes like the way someone behaves, like it's not really like digestible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would look at it into where some of the best characters in wrestling are people who are able to put like, you know, the elements of their actual selves into the character, right? But the thing is with wrestling characters, right? Imagine if someone like Stone Cold Steve Austin existed in your workplace, right? The minute he encounters any resistance, he's punching the boss in the face, drinking a beer in the parking lot and crashing through a wall. Like, that man would be in prison in 5 minutes, right? So for me, it's kind of like, as Jack O'Connor, the wrestler, I can't be going around everywhere talking shit to everyone. I can't be antagonizing every person that's near me, because obviously if you did that in real life, you'd get your head kicked in by a crowd, right?
Yeah.
So for me, wrestling was kind of an opportunity to allow that element of my personality be freed, where I can kind of speak my mind a little more and not be polite, because
it's part of the theatrics.
But the theatrics, especially when you work like a job like ours, like in law enforcement, where there's like a hard limit. Your mask is stoicism. Like you don't show any real you sometimes when you're on that job, because you don't want convicted criminals knowing what you're thinking.
And on top of that, it's like, do I want like my bosses and people around me to know that? Because like sometimes, as much as like I don't think you're this type of person, because I think a lot of like the like apprehensions are more due to like, your personality or whatever it is, right? Of like, I'm an introverted guy, is this something I want to do, being out in the crowd? Where like some people, it's like the fear of mockery. It's like, I don't want to do this because I ain't trying to get clowned at work. Like, I can deal with this if I lived at home forever and I never had to go to a workplace with 100 people. And they're like, what are you going to do? Have me on your fucking podcast? Blah, blah, blah,
right.
And be a fucking dick. And you're like, man. Like,
in my experience, it's for the most part, it's been pretty supportive. And I think it's because
I think it's authenticity. I think if you're actually that guy, then people go like, I see it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like this thing where it's like you're trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, where it's like, dude, it's corny. Yeah. It's annoying. Like, it's,
I think it's helpful that people have responded well to me in the ring. And I think it's because I do have, some credibility to look. You look like an athlete, right? You look like someone who could go out there and fight someone, right? And make it look credible, right? That's where I think some guys in wrestling, especially when they're brand new, like, it's tough if you're like a guy who's like 19 years old and you're 170 pounds.
It's hard to sell
maybe even lighter than that. It's really hard. You got to like because I've heard some awful things said about wrestlers, and you're in the match with them, and like you're maybe even their tag partner, and you don't want to like trash your but you're sitting there going, Jesus Christ, they're just
they're roasting you.
And there was one time I was in a match, and I won't name names because I don't want to like make fun of people's physiques or anything, but like you hear comments and you're like, you're in the ring doing the stuff, and they're still talking about your partner's physique on the side, and you're like, God damn, leave it out. God damn, I'm working my ass off here, and you can't talk about how skinny this guy is. Like, leave it alone.
Do you find like sometimes the taunting can get like we kind of talked this before we start, but like, does sometimes like the audience interaction or engagement actually before it gets to like them rushing the stage, is there some point where someone has to be like, all right, lady, calm the fuck down?
And this is something that I've always I've found it's kind of nice in wrestling. Things like, being racist, sexist, making comments about people's sexualities and all that. It's unacceptable. You don't do it because you're now crossing the line from heckling to abuse, right? And it's so for me, I haven't had anything myself where it's like, that's too far, I'm going to get mad at this guy. But if I heard someone spouting the N-word at someone, I'd be like, okay, everyone's going to latch on to that one and be like, fuck that guy. Right?
Kick that person
Get that
out.
fucking dude out, right?
Yeah.
And I'm happy that is kind of the thing where it's like, this is entertainment. People don't need that kind of, the bad stuff, right? You want to have a good time here, and it's more fun with light-hearted heckling and trash talk than you getting into political and racial stuff and religious stuff. It just, people don't want to go out and have that on their minds the whole time.
Yeah, it ruins it. It really does. And I think it's interesting to see as someone that's performing, because it's one of those things of it's interesting to see how many people out there go out to an event with the preconceived notion that they can ruin it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just wait a minute. You thought you were that important. Even if you're a comedian heckling or whatever, I mean, an audience member, at some point it's you must have came here to do this.
Well, yeah,
there's no way this just
Because when you say heckling, right, it's... Especially with comedians, you'll see it where it's someone will make they'll heckle. It's a one-liner, oh yeah, something, right? And
whatever,
then
dipshit.
You might leave it out there as a joke. Oh, you might, I want to see how good this guy is and see if he can talk some shit to me, right? But when it gets to the point where you're literally preventing the guy from doing the reason he's there, you're ruining the performance itself. When we can't even do the fucking job anymore, you've crossed the line, right?
Yeah.
We've had it where crowds are just being really horrible, and you're almost I don't want to. Let's just finish the match and go. I don't want to keep dealing with this hostility for no reason. But that's so rare. I think that's one time where and it was a show where they were really dismissive of female wrestlers for no reason, and it was just. It's been around for a long time now. Female wrestling's been pretty prevalent.
Stratus, man.
God, even after her now,
yeah.
it's they're just as big a part of the show as anything.
Well,
so,
yeah, then WrestleMania,
as it should
they
be.
were some of the biggest events.
Right, as it should be, because
right.
some of these people are phenomenal athletes, and they should be showcased.
Whoever the chick was that won the female... She was in
that the triple threat?
Yeah.
That was Io Sky.
Yeah.
From Japan. She's brilliant.
It's the athletics, man. Some people, as much hate as people give a Jake Paul guy or the Logan Paul, it's there's something to be said of these Hall of Fame wrestlers coming out and being yo, this guy was a natural born athlete.
Oh,
and
yeah.
As much as a little cocky asshole he is, and as arrogant as he is, it's he's still, when it's time to dial it in and put the jets on, he performs
every single time.
Right?
That's what makes him great.
And it's funny because he got so much shit through YouTube, and it's his wrestle. If he did not have the persona, it's he probably still would have built that reputation.
Oh yeah.
Through wrestling, it's
100%.
This was the dude. So.
Oh God, yeah. Wrestling has spawned a lot. Especially lately, right, when you're getting the wrestlers who are now becoming movie stars, and it's a big transition to go from wrestling to acting, and seeing guys do that. It's impressive because it's obviously shown that they've worked at it.
Yeah.
And it's cool that guys can find avenues after they get old, because you look at what John Cena's doing right now, right? Yeah. It's brilliant. The bad guy John Cena stuff is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. And
especially when it's you're not getting anything new out of me. You're getting fuck all. No new music. No new gear. I'm not doing anything different. Bastards.
No. Same thing. Taking the titles so no one can have it.
Love it.
I think it's great. And I think that's more of the stuff you're seeing now is more of the... I think this came out of the social media era.
Oh, yeah.
Where of now I'm just leaning into hatred for the engagement.
Oh yeah, well, the social media aspect of wrestling is huge now, especially in like WWE. Great, because I don't know how much you watch, but they did a build-up in with Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes where they filmed the whole, he attacked him, and it was like they literally relied on the knowledge that there will be fans with phones. They'll see the guys they like and they'll want to film that, and then when something happens, look at that, we just caught a natural moment.
Yeah, and
I think that is genius.
Yeah,
and it's like, that's brilliant. They've now moved their production to the modern age, right? That's the biggest difference with like that post Vince McMahon era. It's like,
because I was just gonna say, do you think like Triple H taking over is now, besides the controversy, I think he's just an old dude that likes to fuck. I think this guy's just like...
I think he's just a maniac.
Yeah, I think this guy...
I think if you're only learning that Vince McMahon was a fucking lunatic...
Dude, he's the white Kanye West.
Yeah,
he's the white Kanye West.
I don't know if you've seen what Kanye's been doing the last couple of days.
Well, maybe he wasn't sucking his cousin's dick, but...
Zero pressure on that one, by the way. No one even asked.
Yeah.
That's the craziest bit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, no one even wants your shit.
No one cares. Why are you telling us this?
Yeah, it's fucked. But it's funny you bring that up because, like, certain people like that are genius, it's like, oh, shut the fuck up.
You're not tough, Ralph. You're all right. Come on.
Some people, and I explained this to a guy I had on, and he kind of gave me this look. But I said, like, look at Kanye West and, like, think of the analogy of, like, this guy's brain is like a Ferrari.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he doesn't know how to drive the fucking thing yet.
Oh, yeah.
Of course he's going to spin out and say he hates Jews or whatever it is,
just
right?
The vile, nasty stuff that wants to see in the world, right?
It's like, but my question to this guy I interviewed of like, do you park the Ferrari knowing you can't drive it? Or do you learn as you go?
I think when you are a guy like that, the only route is eventually you're going to wrap that fucking Ferrari around a tree, right?
Yeah.
It's going to come to the natural conclusion, I think, that whole Kanye West thing. And I think the same with guys like Vince McMahon eventually.
Oh, yeah, or P.
Your actions will come back to haunt you one day. They always do.
And
right?
And it was funny. I was just talking to my girlfriend the other day, and I said, like, whether people like to believe it or not, play naive, play stupid, it's like, people get an inherent gut feeling. It's like, if I can't look myself in the mirror at the end of the day or over the actions that I did, then it was wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Like, it's just that simple. If I'm like, if I go like, ooh, that's not good.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so people know when they're like fucking around, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you see it with like our job. You'll get guys who protest to high heaven that they never did anything, and it's like seeing the evidence in public. I don't know how you can deny this. You're on camera or what have you. Like, your blood is everywhere or whatever the hell. It's like, how can you say you didn't do it when who else would have done it?
Well, I think it's like, the idea, like, hey, people allow you to just like go through these trap doors and be like, oh, well, it was because of this. Well, it was because I was addicted to this. It's because I grew up without a dad. It's because I, got addicted to Tylenol when I was 13 or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, dude, like, you had the same 24 hours I did, man. And, like, you decide to drive 250 on the Hyundai with 4 unregistered sawed-off shotguns. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, I'm the asshole. Like, it's like, dude... Yeah. Like,
it's like, we get told, like, do you think there's a lot of innocent people in jail? And it's like, I think there's a lot of victims of circumstance, but when you get to the people where, like you explain, they get drunk with guns in the car and drugs, and you're like, well, what else?
Where were you going? Like, what did you think was
going to happen? Yeah. Right? If you get caught, like, do you think that there's going to be, oh, well, never mind, sir, those unregistered firearms are not a problem. See you later.
Above the law. But what's interesting enough, and I do myself a disservice because my algorithm is like a black hole of like just like the most ridiculous things, like whether it's like whether it's like people getting ejected from their vehicles or like animals attacking each other or like just craziness.
It's where I missed the Derek Lewis
Yeah.
Instagram page where it's just like you'll see a guy like it will like fall off a balcony and it'll just be like he's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
He's all right.
Oh yeah,
Fine.
he's fine.
He got up.
But like sometimes I just see some of these things and you're like, dude, it ain't just the people in jail. It's the people that are the voice coaches for the Hollywood kids, and it's the dudes that are like. I was just watching a Joe Rogan episode, and he talked about how he was talking to Jeremy Renner about being because this guy went through he just released an audio book, Jeremy Renner, about getting like his face crushed in and like basically almost dying, how he had to. Like, he couldn't get it addicted to, like, the oxys and Vicodin and shit. And Joe Rogan's on air talking about how, in order for him to get off the Vicodin, he sold it to a dude in the pool hall. It's like, well, you're the dude that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And, like, you're this well-affluent figure that's making hundreds of millions.
You're doing drug deals in a bloody pool
it's
hall.
like, before you got famous, you were selling your oxys.
Yeah.
To, so, not to say that, like, people abstain from it or like they shouldn't, but it's like, dude, like, yes, like
preaching one thing while
and now you're having
yeah.
like the chief of police of Texas or something on your podcast. And it's like, does this guy know you were selling Oxycontins at 23 years old? Like,
man.
No
statute of limitations on that, man.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just really interesting because I think that like plays in to a lot of like that ego and persona development. But I kind of want to like...
Yeah, wherever you want to go, man. We
kind
of got off tangent. Thanks,
No,
Kanye.
man. And like with this kind of like drives home the idea of like you have to establish some sort of like personal wellness routine, like regardless if it's within corrections or within like anywhere else, wrestling or other forms of law enforcement. It's like you have to establish like a good like wellness routine, if that makes sense. And like you mentioned earlier about like for every time I spend out in the public I need to myself. Now, like, do you kind of have like rituals in order to like get yourself into those? Because I see myself as like a roller coaster where it's like I get to the very high, like super exposure moments like this, and then it's like I'm in this room with the lights off, headphones on for 6 hours by myself.
Yeah, for me, it's gaming is the kind of one of the big ones for me. Like, it definitely replaced things like going out because a big factor as to why I kind of became a little more introverted was you start noticing patterns about how you deal with life, right? Like, whenever things got difficult at work or within life, I found like, fucking, I'm sitting in a pub again with my friends who are also going through rough shit, just putting away drinks. And then
it's hard,
when you go and then say, I don't know, oh, my stomach hurts, and you go to a doctor and then they ask you how many drinks you have in a week, and you have to tell them like, oh yeah, like fucking 10, 15, no problem. And they're looking at you like, I wonder why your stomach hurts. Like, so yeah, stuff like that kind of made me reevaluate kind of what I was doing to myself mentally and physically. And yeah, it's a continuing process, but for me it's spending just more time at home with the dog and the girlfriend and just relaxing really is kind of the thing I like to do to get my mind back on track.
Do you ever find like having like a separate persona or like a on stage attitude? Do you find like there's... First question, did you start getting into a relationship before or after you started wrestling?
So I was dating my girlfriend I was dating her before I got into wrestling.
So now
she was actually with me at the show where I saw the poster that said like, you want to be a wrestler,
right? Yeah. Now, was this something you had to like introduce her to, or was it something she already had the buy-in?
So she kind of has like an idea of what wrestling is. She's she's not a fan. Like, I'll say that. Like, when she went to the shows, like, she's not like into loud crash bang style like things, right? So she's supportive of everything I've done, but like, you know, unless it's like a huge show, she doesn't come out to watch. And I don't, you know, if someone isn't like, you know, if you get that they're not into it and it's loud and it's a lot of sitting around, and you have to separate it sometimes. Versus, you know, like one of my brothers, he'll come to every show he gets a chance, right? When he's not working, there are some friends that do the same thing, and they also just do it because they're genuine fans of wrestling. And there's been people in my life, they've told me, oh, since you've become a wrestler, like, you know, I've kind of rediscovered the love of wrestling, right? And I think that's also combined with now it's easier to watch than ever with WWE being on Netflix. And it's on TV all the time. So it's kind of like in the mainstream again, which is pretty cool.
Well, and it, like, I think when you come like full circle, it's like, because the first time someone told me, hey, I watched this episode with you and so, like, I thought it was hilarious. It was like, boom, I came full circle. I completed the life cycle. Right. I created a piece of content. Someone watched it. It elicited a reaction.
Right.
It was like, boom. It was like, I don't give a fuck what no one else says. I don't care if fucking 10 million thousand people it's like, you know what I mean? So I think it's getting that like life cycle reaction of like, oh, it was their buy-in. They enjoyed it. It couldn't have been perfect because it never is.
Oh no, never.
But I did the job.
Yeah,
I did what I was supposed to do, and like even if it's a B plus, it's a fucking win.
It's one of those things where when I get fans, when I'm like doing ring crew stuff, and you get the fans who are kind of like, you know, they're taking their time to leave, and they come up to you and go, that was a really good match you were in. I take it as like the highest compliment because they don't have to tell you that. Like, I've seen wrestlers where they get told to their face they're shit. Like, that's tough to deal with. And, you know, and thankfully I've gotten more praise than like outright. Chris, like, you know, I get like the constructive pointers all the time, and I'm thankful for that because people don't have to give you advice. Right?
No, it's like people don't owe you shit.
They don't owe you anything.
Yeah.
So like, even if it's information that you go, oh, okay, like it's interesting, but I'm not sure how that would work for me, you still try to take it on board. And
is that something
and that goes
you
with
had
anything,
to,
really?
Yeah, is that something that you like kind of transcends through other moments of your life where it's like, because you've been through this, it's also easier in here and here and here because I just have a level of discretion of like, no, because like this. Well, it's the same thing as this. Like, nobody owes me. Say I'm going to slip into a puddle. Well, someone could tell me, or they'd be like, fuck this guy. Like, I don't know this guy's shit.
Tell him anything, yeah.
Right. So, does that give you a little bit more, like, awareness of, like, how you are? And, like, do you have a lot of, like, would you, like, when you consider yourself, would you say you're a guy that has, like, high self-awareness?
Yeah, and I find like my self-awareness hits the point of like almost a negative because I can be incredibly hypercritical of myself.
Right,
like,
where it's like over.
Where I think you were going to pull up, you're probably going to pull up a couple of my matches.
Yeah.
You were saying, and for me, like I'm going to be doing in my head is reviewing every bloody mistake I've made.
Right.
Right, and especially when I watch like old matches, right, because a lot of the matches that are available. Right,
or like
they're from back and like
like this one was a year ago. The
other one God, I think I've definitely improved since then.
Exactly,
and it's still like cool to see the old.
Like
man, that's a throwback.
Yeah, we'll put this one up here.
Yeah, that's a great match because all the guys in this match, like I'd argue, I'm probably the worst bloody wrestler in this match.
So let's see here. Where are you?
This is Flight Risk versus myself and Western King. Western King is absolutely phenomenal wrestler. He's tearing it up right now.
So you're right here.
I'm right here. The son of Irish, Cody Garcia.
Boom.
Oh, phenomenal forearm. Brilliant.
is how much tension is on the ropes? Like when you're jumping on those ropes, is it like one of those slack lines?
Yeah, so it's...
Or is it a little bit more give?
It's a bit like... It's cables, right? So
Right.
most wrestling ropes are steel cables. So, yeah, they can be very springy depending on how tight they've been made. I don't think in my experience I've ever had actual ropes in a match. And those...
Do you find your... do you find there's like a awareness of like keeping your appearance, or do you find that like that changes a lot of things? Like, do you want to try to come in as, because say here you have a mustache, does that make a big difference to how people react to you?
Yeah, people definitely got a more villainous reaction from me when I had like the mustache, and like I kind of made my facial hair made me look a little more villainous.
Right.
Funny story with the mustache. The only reason I got rid of it was I was trimming it one day, and then I trimmed it too small, and then I ended up looking like a certain Austrian painter.
Yeah.
And
and then it was
I was
like,
oh, crap, I'm gonna have to trim it all off. And then when I walked out of the bathroom, my girlfriend looked at me and went, "Oh, thank God!" And I was like, "All right, no to mustache then."
No to mustache.
And then I've been able to find that visually, when it comes to like my hair and stuff, like I can still make the character work regardless of how my facial hair looks, or
right.
It's all in my persona, my body language, how I talk.
Yeah, you can like bring it back. Like people see something, and then based on like your demeanor of like how you talk or how you present, it's like, oh, he's still there.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, now, how much do you find yourself like in this evolution where it's like, oh, I need to like add certain things into this, or I need to like, is it more of like a trial and error thing, or is it more of like a quiet development and then you're like revealing something?
For me, it's definitely trial and error, and it's always like I don't go through periods where I'm like trying to work on a specific thing. There's, especially in wrestling, right? I'm always trying to come up with offense that looks devastating without, making me look...
Are the pants uncomfortable?
Those pants, no, very comfy actually. I switched to wearing like, I call them like Vale Tudo shorts. They're almost like bike shorts.
Oh, are they like the ones with the slits in the side?
Yeah, like
the
kind
kickboxing
of,
ones.
Like well, no, not quite kickboxing. They're more like the skin tight. They look like biker shorts more than anything, right? And I found just for freedom of movement was a big reason why I switched to that. And it's also just the pants started to rip, and those were my first ever pants, and I didn't want them to become tattered and horrible, so I put them away as a kind of memento. And
right. Did you find there was a lot of like how long did it take you to like decide on a was it more something you were coached into, or was it something where you had to sit with? It was like, am I going to be Rey Mysterio? Am I going to be Randy Orton? Am I going to try to do what this guy's doing?
Yeah, there was about a week
like
where
face paint, no face paint, mask, no mask.
Yeah, it depends on how much people are willing to spend on gear. Like, remember, like wrestling gear is very expensive. Like getting a custom made like mask, for example, is no cheap
easy
feat.
Yeah.
Getting like sequins in your gear isn't cheap. You have to be able to maintain it. Like, and then character wise, for me, I always kind of leaned towards like the guys who were a bit more like the tough men of wrestling. They were a bit more like the Ken Shamrocks. Mm-hmm. Guys like God, who else? Like anyone who would do like shoot style. So like for Japanese wrestling would be guys like Minoru Suzuki, who's an MMA
dude,
pioneer.
Like the ginger guy fighting Irish. He had
Sheamus.
Yeah.
He's a big man. So, but guys. There tends to be like sort of a lot of archetypes when it comes to wrestling characters now, because it's been around for so long. I'm kind of described in the wrestling business as a shooter, right? Which is someone who has that legitimate background, right?
And some people are probably more on the theatric side where it's more acrobatics.
Yeah, there are guys where they're more lean towards what kind of the lucha libre, like the Mexican style, which is lots of, rolling, dives, lots of...
Is it hard to work with someone like that?
If you have no idea what they're doing, then yes. For me, I can do a handful of their sequences. I can take an arm drag, I can roll. But if you're asking me to like trade backflips with them, that ain't gonna bloody happen. But
now, do you find it's based on do you find when considering it as an archetype, it's like how much does that variate from the same style of wrestler? Could two people have the same style, but the requirements they need from you or expectations?
It hinges on, styles make matches, right? Same goes in MMA, boxing, styles make matches, right? So you can absolutely have two guys who are into acrobatics, but what you need to make sure is that you establish, is there a struggle? Why are they doing this? Why should I cheer for this guy and boo for that guy? That's what they need to establish. But you can do all that stuff. But where I like the mixing of styles, right, is you put me in the ring with someone who's all about high flying. What do you think I'm going to do?
Yeah,
Let's stop them from doing that, right? Throw them.
Yeah.
Take their legs out, right?
And it makes it exciting because then it's now I really get to we each get to individually show off the highest.
Yeah. And that's the bit that makes great wrestling matches, is where both guys are amazing athletes and then they both get moments to show why they're great athletes. For me, the best things I get to do is when I get to get going on the striking, when I get to go start kicking people, start throwing people, doing my submissions. That's where I look really strong in wrestling, right? Versus I'm going against someone like Alex Rain or a Son of Irish here. They're going to use their speed. And
now, what's the experience like for these guys? When you're talking about where you are here.
So at this point in time, I can't remember the town we're in. I feel bad. I can't remember what town it's in. Doesn't really say. Just says who's in it. So Alex Rain, Western King, the big man in the black unitard there.
Right.
And myself, we've all been wrestling around the same length of time. So we've all been around for about 2 or 3 years now.
Right.
The guy in the green, Son of Irish there, he's one of the guys. His dad was a wrestler as well, the Irishman.
Okay.
And Cody's been in the ring since he was a child, right? So he's been doing it for a very long time, despite being now he's. I think he only just turned 21.
Oh, that's crazy.
But he's been doing it for a long time. So yeah, it was.
Are there a lot of promotions in real Canadian wrestling? You got Top Talent Wrestling. What are the other bigger promotions West Coast Canada? So
the promotions in Alberta I'll speak to because I'm definitely a bit more knowledgeable with them. You'll have your RCW, who I work for, Top Talent. They run shows once a month, and they're the people who trained me. Mm-hmm. You'll have Love Pro Wrestling, which kind of runs on a similar format to Top Talent, where they really do big shows once a month. RCW is they're a promotion that does shows 3 or 4 times a week sometimes, and they do all the small towns in Edmonton and Calgary, and sometimes out in Saskatchewan. You have Can-Am, which is very similar to RCW in terms of setup and how they kind of operate, running smaller towns and Calgary and Edmonton or what have you. There's other promotions like CWE, which kind of run I think they're based out of Winnipeg, but they run pretty much Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and there and back the whole time. So Canada has a very big scene for wrestling in terms of compared to other countries, right? There's probably 4 or 5 decent sized promotions in every region of the country, right? In the big wrestling hotspots in Canada would obviously be Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto. So there's dozens of promotions that I can't.
Not much in BC, or
there's a few. There's a lot in BC, in the Lower Mainland, and a couple that run the BC interior. But
now, what about going to the U.S.? How would that is it the same type of thing where you have like your local promotions?
Yeah, I think independent scene in wrestling, I think it's so much bigger in the US. Like, there's promotions of every level, obviously, from your grassroots, tiny guys performing in front of 20 people in Texas to some promotion in Portland.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's huge. It's
Right.
all it's a huge ecosystem of bigger and smaller promotions all kind of together. Sorry, what's the original?
No, just like what you thought is there the same type of structure when you look at?
I think a lot of promotions are different. I think some are obviously run a bit more like businesses. Some are run very poorly.
Yeah,
but
of course.
It all hinges, right? I mean, all independent promotions run on like modest budgets. If I'm being polite,
Yeah.
right? Like modest. Guys like me are wrestling and building the ring.
And
all
what
that
people
stuff.
don't understand is it's either just a dude or a couple dudes trying to figure out that thing.
Yeah, it's like trying to.
You know what I mean?
It's like trying to
just
start a bloody
business.
podcast,
Yeah.
right? You want to
It's the
do
same
a thing, and you got to like.
And some people can do it, some people can't. Some
No.
people they can't do it for a while, and then they start being able to do it. Like
Wrestling promotion definitely strikes me as one of those things that a lot of people will see it and go, "Oh, I could fucking do that." No
and then
problem.
when you realize what
and
the
then
actual
it's like
costs
the amount
are.
of costs,
And you start
got to
seeing
pay
the
the
money that
boys,
you owe.
like there are wrestlers. They make the joke, whereas it's a hot dog and a handshake. It's like, yeah, no, you got to give me money.
Nah,
right?
no thanks.
I would be here if I don't get something.
Hey, yeah, if there's not something.
Yeah.
Few questions before we wrap this up.
Knock her away, son.
All right. When's the last time you were surprised in yourself in a good way?
Oh man, the last time I was surprised, it would be this past weekend. I went to a jiu-jitsu tournament in the city, Edmonton here, and I competed, but I felt woefully underprepared for this tournament because I'd been sick in the lead up to it, so I had like a cold, so I couldn't train as hard. Came in really just kind of going, I'll see how I do, and I ended up winning 2 matches in like a best of 3 series against a guy, and I think kind of ran through him, poor fella, but so I was very surprised with how well I was able to kind of put a good performance together like that after having kind of a lot of small setbacks.
Right.
So very surprised to kind of just like figure it out, lock in, and go, okay, you know what you're doing, just do it. So,
and when you talk about like a legacy, where do you see like your future plans? Do you see that there's like, where there's like, you're not there yet? Like I'll give you an example.
right.
And like, I tend to overly do this, but you've been such a great guest that I didn't have to like, sometimes you have to prop people up and you have to go like, this is how I want you to answer the question, motherfucker. So now I'll answer the question myself. So for example, like when I'm doing this, there's so many things that I know that I'm going to accomplish. So it's like, yo, you like it now? Just fucking wait. Like, you just fucking wait. So when you think of yourself and setting a legacy and something that you're going to like ride away into the sunset, is there certain things that you have like just you wait and see?
For me, it's tough to kind of have. I'm not the guy that thinks in what will people think of me 30 years from now, 20 years from now. I'm very much an in the moment kind of guy. But the goals I kind of have for myself in the next 5 years, even as I'm starting to reach my mid-30s, would be I'd like to be in a position where I can do the things I love when I want. Like, I would love to get to a position where I can work the Monday to Friday, and then on Friday night, Saturday night, go wrestle and come back Monday morning. And, because I find that is where I'll find the progression I'm seeking. If I can get the job that kind of lines up the days where you're not doing shift work and you have to organize everything around how much sick time you can BS or how much vacation time you can kind of plot out. So that's a very modest goal for me that I think where I'll see the most personal growth. Do you know what I mean? It's a very modest goal, but
it's something that
it would allow me to do what I want.
And to, again, like, being humble is like one of the greatest strengths, right? So when some people turn around and they just go like, I'm just because you're like, this is where your outlook is, doesn't mean that you're opening yourself to be like, but if something comes, like, if something, an opportunity comes my way, I'm not gonna, like, if it's strategically sound everything makes sense, it's like, well, why wouldn't I, right? So even when people are somewhat modest, it's still like, yeah, but at the same time, it's like this calculated where it's like, I'm setting my expectations at a realistic level, so then, like, I'm not being like a slug and doing nothing.
Oh yeah.
But I'm also not saying I'm gonna be Randy Orton next year.
Right. Like,
right.
That's sort of the thing is, and you said it perfectly earlier. Like, comparing yourself to the elites is just gonna drive you mad. You can only be yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, that is maximizing Jack O'Connor as a wrestler as much as I possibly can with the time I have. And, if I can go and wrestle every weekend, that would be just a fantastic stepping stone to possibly offer opportunities like wanting to go travel, right? Mm-hmm. That would be, if I got the opportunity to go to Mexico, Japan, or the US, even if it was like, oh, you won't lose any money doing this.
You'll break even.
Or just get your flight covered. Perfect.
Let's do it.
Dream. Let's do it.
What events or promotions do you have coming up?
I am doing a run of shows for RCW at Calgary, May 9th. Their anniversary show in Calgary.
May 9th?
May 9th. That is at the No. 1 Legion, downtown Calgary. And then on May 10th, I'll be doing a show in Edmonton for RCW, the Edmonton edition of the anniversary weekend.
Wicked.
And that will be at the Norwood Legion on 82nd there. So
there you go.
Downtown Edmonton.
Any other?
Hit me up for tickets.
Yeah. We'll definitely put all of your social medias and everything in the... Do you have like a public social media? Or?
Yeah, the social media that you contacted me through is
public. So we'll put all of your social medias and everything, and we'll gather more details to get that out to the people. But I just want to extend the thank you and appreciation for coming on.
Man. It was a pleasure.
I think this was amazing, and it's actually just funny because I was just watching WrestleMania and I was talking about the John Cena thing, and people are like, fuck out of here with this shit, man. Like, and it was like, so it's very interesting because it's always fun to get that. It's what I compare to like a magician telling like their, you know what I mean?
I try not to be the magician, but I do tell people now, like, if you're into wrestling as an adult, it's okay. There's lots of adults who are into wrestling. There are full-grown adults who bloody like Disney movies,
exactly.
Right? So
there's so many
it's
things.
Not as bad. Like, I'm a UFC fan and I love wrestling too. Like, so how do you like that stuff when you know it's fake? It's like
it's
not, but you know what I mean.
But then you just say, well, people watch Jake Paul box, so.
There you go, right?
It's all scripted.
Oh, exactly. But thanks for having me on, brother.
Thank you very much.
I'll have to do this again. It seems like we only scratched the surface.
Exactly. We're going to have to book ourselves in for another one. And with that, we thank the audience for coming around for the ride. With you guys, there would be nothing. We just yesterday celebrated our 1-year anniversary. So, this is amazing. And again, thank you so much for everybody tuning in. To my guest, Jack O'Connor, wishing him success May 9th and May 10th.
May 10th?
May 10th? May 9th and May 10th.
There you go.
Wrestling RCW, the anniversary show. Yeah. And with that, don't forget, like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to check out all the other stuff. And with that, this is Solo Spotlight with Jack O'Connor.